No system, genius flow, easy and funny, the 9 Manual, incomplete chapter, location. Tomb of the Living Dead in Zhongnan Mountain method of obtaining. Diving is allowed to enter suggestion. Pay attention to avoiding disciples of the Quanzhen Sect and dive directly into the tomb or use acting skills to deceive people from entering the tomb. Su Li traveled through the world of martial arts, refused to live a mediocre life, and began to calculate the possible opportunities in this world. However, it was too easy to say and too difficult to do. Su Li couldn't even swim past the 9 Yin fragments. He wants to find the 9 Yang Manual. Kunlun Mountain is so big that he doesn't know where it is. If he wants Biming Divine Arts and Lingbo Micro Steps, Dali is too far away, and he is afraid of dying on the road before passing. He doesn't know how to play chess yet if he wants to have the skill of no cliff. No system, no deep blue bonus. Just as Su Li was lost, a shimmering figure descended from the sky, changing Su Li's fate. Su Li, Guosher, do you want the 9 Yin Manual or not? Jiumozhi. I am willing to exchange Shaolin skills. Su Li, national teacher, Wudang's pure Yang Wuji Gong is good. Let's sneak in and learn some skills. Jiumozhi. I am a Tibetan national teacher and a Buddhist monk. How could I act like this? In the Wudang Mountains, Jiumozhi, dressed in a Taoist robe and disguised as a Wudang disciple, turned his gaze over the pure Yang Wuji Gong in his hand with burning eyes and spat out 2 words. Truly fragrant. This book is also known as Others Are Disguising Me, but I have an inner controversy. As a crosser, I have a bit of a collection fetish. The national teacher takes me to compile secret scripts. The national teacher disguises and steals into various sects to compile secret scripts. Keywords of the novel. People in comprehensive martial arts, refusing to play rotten without pop-ups. People in comprehensive martial arts, refusing to play rotten. TXT complete collection download. People in comprehensive martial arts, refusing to play rotten. Latest chapters to read. Chapter 1. Comprehensive Martial Arts World Opportunities Market Points. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Comprehensive Martial Arts World Opportunities Market Points, the 9 Yin Manual, incomplete chapter, location. Tomb of the Living Dead in Zhongnan Mountain method of obtaining. Diving is allowed to enter suggestion. Pay attention to avoiding disciples of the Quanzhen Sect and dive directly into the tomb or use acting skills to trick the people in the tomb into entering. In the mountains, by the water's edge, a young man in white overalls looked at the paper in his hand and murmured softly. This man is around 17 years old, with a ponytail tied and a hairstyle similar to that of the young Gai Nia in Qin Shizhong, highlighting a carefree and unrestrained personality. This man's name is Su Li. He was originally a great young man of the 21st century, without saving anyone or being electrocuted. Just while sleeping, I dreamt of a car driver yelling at me, "Brother, it's time to go to another world." Then when Su Li woke up, he came to this world. It's just so hasty and dramatic. This world is somewhat peculiar. The vast continent seems to have been divided into several parts, surrounded by oceans. During the reign of Yang Guang in the Great Sui dynasty, the internal turmoil was unbearable and various factions emerged. Although the economy of the Song dynasty was prosperous, the military was extremely weak. The military and political forces of the Ming dynasty were at their peak, while the Mongol Yuan dynasty dominated the grasslands. There are also neighboring countries such as Western Xia and Liao, Great Jin, and Tubo and Dali. Do you think this is over? No. Also, in this world, there are things like martial arts. After arriving in this world, Su Li heard many familiar sect names. The 2 giants of Buddhism, Zihang Jingzhai and Shaolin, while the Taoist sect is led by Quanzhen and Wudang. There are also Yin Gui sect, Sun and Moon Divine sect, as well as Ming sect, which are regarded as demon sects by people in the martial arts world. In addition, sects such as the Flower Moving Palace, the Qinglong Society, and the 5 Sacred Sword sect are also well known. These sect names had already surprised Su Li. It wasn't until Su Li heard the names of Zhang Sanfeng, Xuanzi, Zhu Yuyan, Shimen Shueishue, Lu Xiaofeng, and others from the population of this world that she fully realized. He has read many novels and naturally knows that this is the world of martial arts mentioned in the novels. And the country that Su Li traveled to was the Great Song dynasty. Su Li was wearing it, but her age had decreased, and the modern clothes she was wearing were enough to explain everything. I just don't know why my hair has grown longer. Su Li's explanation for this is that it can change with age, let alone hair. Su Li even made a special estimate at that time, and his age was only around 17. Becoming younger is a good thing. There is no such thing as a system or golden finger, which can be considered a bad thing. Su Li sold all the things on her body and exchanged them for some scattered silver, so as not to end up begging along the street. After changing her clothes, Su Li met two groups of martial arts people who started fighting on the spot. The dazzling martial arts left Su Limu overwhelmed and he decided to practice on the spot. I came to the world of martial arts and didn't learn martial arts. Isn't this a good opportunity for nothing? Even if there were no golden fingers like Deep Blue in the system to practice, Su Li felt that he had to try hard. What if he was an unparalleled martial arts genius? Su Li spent some time collecting intelligence at that time. When he heard more and more familiar people's names, he immediately grabbed a piece of paper and began recording the possible opportunities in this world. He was reborn in the Great Song dynasty and was not too far from Zhongnan Mountain. Su Li's first stop was at Zhongnan Mountain, avoiding disciples of the Quanzhen Sect and arriving behind the tomb of the living dead on the back mountain. There is only one river in the entire Zhongnan Mountain. Going upstream, you should be able to reach the ancient tomb, right? Su Li looked at the river in front of her, her eyes full of excitement. The 9-yin Manual. Now Guojing and Huang Rong have married and have a daughter, this is the news that Su Li inquired about. In the past, the 5 unique swordsmanship contested the 9-yin Manual, and later the 9-yin Manual came into Wang Chongyang's hands. Wang Chongyang and Lin Chaoying discussed martial arts. Because they didn't want to lose to Lin Chaoying, they left part of the 9-yin Manual in the ancient tomb. This 9-yin fragmented chapter is the closest opportunity for Su Li. Su Li looked left and right, took off her clothes, and then suddenly plunged in, starting to swim into the mountain. Only 2 minutes had passed, and Su Li's head popped out of the water. Don't misunderstand, he didn't swim in, but returned to the shore, breathing heavily, as if he wanted to breathe all the air of his life. Su Li shook her head for a moment. It's easy to say, but it's really difficult to do. I don't know any martial arts like turtle breathing techniques, so I can't swim in at all. At this moment, Su Li only hates that her manual ability is not strong enough to make some simple airbags and other things to store oxygen. Su Li walked over to her clothes, put them on, and took out the paper that had been placed close to her. She looked at the second item with an iron blue face. Beiming Divine Skill, Lingbo Micro-Step Location. Under the Wuyang Jade Wall of Wuyang Mountain in Dali difficulty. This place is located in the forbidden area of the Infinite Sword Sect, and there is also such a high throw. Suggestion. Avoid disciples of the Infinite Sword Sect, bring enough ropes, be careful, you are not Duan Yu. Even an ordinary person falling from a cliff into a lake can shatter to pieces, let alone in case you can't fall into the lake. Go rock climbing honestly. Dali is too far away. Su Li shook her head slowly. The combination of Beiming Divine Arts and Lingbo Micro-Steps is much better than the so-called 9-yin fragments. Su Li also wants the former, but these two divine skills are far from Dali. The world at present is much larger than in the past. Su Li wants to go to Dali purely by walking, at least 3 months. The money Su Li earns from pawning clothes is not enough to eat. Although this one ranks second, it is not the next choice for Su Li. Su Li shook her head slowly and continued to look at the third point. The 9-yang Manual Location. Kunlun Mountain, in the belly of White Ape's difficulty lies in. Geographical location, age limit, requiring drilling, and the need to use one's own strength to fight against the white ape. If the white ape had not developed a disease at the time, it would not have allowed you to have a cesarean section. Suggestions. 1. Bring enough rope and enough food. Kunlun Mountain is too big, so be ready to look for months or even years. First check the vicinity of Zhuwu Lianhuan village. Shovel, necessary for digging holes, otherwise you can't get in. Surgical instruments. It is recommended to master some medical skills, so as to avoid the white ape not giving face. 2. Or wait for Zhang Wuji to bury his scriptures before going, which can save a lot of trouble. Pass. Daming is not close either. Kunlun Mountain is so big, who knows which mountain it is on. If you want to find it, you must have enough silver at any rate. Su Li kept shaking her head. Exorcism sword technique. It's also in the Ming dynasty, but it's still a long way to go. And although I want to practice martial arts, I don't want to be a eunuch. Tai Xian Jing. It seems that Xiaka Xing also has a background in the Ming dynasty, right? I don't even know where Xiaka Island is. Pass. The dark iron sword technique seems to be in Xiangyang, but I don't have any foundation at all. Even if that giant eagle is willing to guide me, I can't bear it. But if I lack weapons in the future, I can go there. Su Li nodded lightly, constantly looking at the content above, and finally exhaled a heavy breath of turbid air. There is no one to choose from. Including the last one. Su Li's gaze shifted downwards and he looked at the last piece of content with a silly smile, making a sound. This one can be said to be his ultimate goal. Wuyazi's lifelong skill location. Yagu Valley in the heavenly deaf land of Legu Mountain. Difficulty lies in being proficient in chess. One must first know how to kill oneself, and then play chess with Su Xinghe and defeat him. Difficult. Suggestion. Find a master who excels in both chess, martial arts, and let him guide you in playing chess by transmitting messages to the secret. Note. 1. The opponent's strength must be stronger than Su Xinghe, otherwise the message of transmitting messages to the secret will be discovered by Su Xinghe. 2. Duan Yanqing is the most suitable, and you can use Duan Yu's information to threaten him. However, Duan Yanqing is the world's largest villain, and the opponent has the possibility of being tortured by dogs and jumping walls. You need to have the ability to endure and the determination to die calmly. And Duan Yanqing's ventriloquism has the ability to confuse people's hearts. You need to have a certain level of strength to find Duan Yanqing, otherwise the other party will urge the ventriloquism, and you are very likely to say everything out of control this last chance, but Su Li likes it the most and it is also the chance that can make a leap to the sky. Su Li made a lot of preparations and counted everything in. Originally, Su Li was thinking about first mastering the 9 yin fragments, gaining the power to protect himself, and then using his learned martial arts skills to find a few mountain strongholds to make some money and horses, heading straight to Dali Wuyang Mountain to see if he could still find the northern underworld divine arts and Lingbo micro-steps. Along the way, he would also look for the trace of Duan Yanqing. The plan is great, but unfortunately, the plan cannot keep up with the changes. Su Li collapsed directly at his doorstep. He couldn't even swim into the ancient tomb, let alone learn the 9 yin fragments. If I can't get through the side door, I'll go through the main door. Zurich was feeling lost when suddenly he thought of the 2 groups of martial arts fighters he had seen in the city not long ago. Martial arts. The nameless flame in Su Li's heart was once again ignited, and he was extremely moved. Having a carefree past life may not necessarily be a good thing in this world. Do whatever you say. Su Li stuffed the paper in her arms and headed straight towards the main entrance of the ancient tomb. Guojing and Huang Rong both have teenage daughters. According to the timeline, the current leader of the ancient tomb sect should be Little Dragon Girl, right? Su Li pondered, and the speed under her feet became faster and faster. Xialongnu, I'm here. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Tibetan national teacher Jiumozhi. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 2 Tibetan National Teacher Jiumozhi. My name is Su Li. I recently traveled to this world and witnessed the wonders of martial arts. I have decided to practice martial arts. The fact proves that everything in the novel is deceitful. I first went to the back of Mount Zhongnan and prepared to dive into the ancient tomb to learn the 9 yin fragments. However, it was too deep for me to swim through. However, as a young man of the new century, I have a strong ability to withstand pressure. I did not give up, but decided to break through from the front, appeal to emotions, and reason with reason, using my acting skills comparable to that of Chao Wei Jiehui to deceive Xiao Longnu into joining the ancient tomb sect. Result: Hey! Wu, who are you? How did you appear in the forbidden area of our Quanzhen Sect? Behind the Zhongnan mountain, in a forest, Su Li looked at 2 young Taoist priests wearing Taoist robes and holding long swords in front of him, and lost his composure for a moment. He didn't expect to encounter a Quanzhen Sect disciple all the way from the mountain pass to the water side of the back mountain. I ran into 2 disciples of the Quanzhen Sect while searching for the ancient tomb in the back mountain before even having a cup of tea. Is he unlucky or lucky? Unfortunately, he got caught. If Su Li thinks carefully, he can definitely think of the reason behind it. The ancient tomb is located in a forbidden area of the Quanzhen Sect, and there are naturally many disciples of the Quanzhen Sect guarding it. As for the riverbank behind the mountain, it seems too normal to them. Why bother sending people to guard it? Su Li was hesitating when he heard another disciple of the Quanzhen Sect speak up. Senior brother, today seems to be the day when our Quanzhen Sect recruits disciples. Isn't this person also here to learn from their master? Su Li listened to the man's words and immediately climbed up the pole. Yes, 2 Taoist masters. The Quanzhen Sect is the leader of the Taoist sect. I heard that the Quanzhen Sect opened its mountain gate today to recruit disciples, so I came 1,000 miles to learn from my master. Who would have thought that after going up the mountain, I went the wrong way and arrived here? In ancient times, most people spoke based on their faces. Su Li was already handsome and extraordinary, and anyone who looked at him would have a good impression. Coupled with Su Li's respectful and polite attitude, these 2 people also believed a bit. This is the forbidden area of our Quanzhen Sect, benefactor. Please hurry up and attend the apprenticeship ceremony. One of the people said, and Su Li nodded repeatedly. Just as he was about to leave, he heard the person continue to say, Junior brother Qingyun, please take this benefactor to the mountain gate to participate in the apprenticeship ceremony. The road conditions in Zhongnan mountain are complex, so as not to lose this benefactor. Su Li was stunned at the words. He had originally intended to leave the mountain by himself, but who would have thought that this person would actually want to take him to attend some apprenticeship ceremony? At first, Su Li's face was gloomy, but gradually, Su Li's furrowed brow also gradually relaxed. Because upon careful consideration, it seems that it is not impossible for him to stay in Quanzhen Sect. What is Su Li's final plan? First, learn the 9 yin fragments and have the power to protect oneself. Then, use the learned martial arts to find a few mountain villages to make some money and horses, and head straight to the Dali Wuliang mountain to see if you can still find the northern underworld divine arts and Lingbo micro steps. Along the way, look for the trace of Duan Yanqing. But when Su Li saw these 2 Quanzhen Sect disciples holding long swords, he changed his mind. The world Su Li is in is not a gaming world, and he doesn't have any system or panel to automatically master after picking up the secret script. Whether it's the 9 yin fragments, the northern underworld divine arts, or Lingbo micro steps, all of these require Su Li to cultivate on his own. All 3 require Su Li to have a certain basic knowledge of martial arts. Su Li, a modern person, doesn't know anything about meridians or acupoints. Even if you have mastered divine skills, how can you cultivate them? There is also Lingbo Weibu, which requires practitioners to understand the 8 trigrams of the Book of Changes. It was precisely because of his understanding of the 8 trigrams of the Book of Changes, coupled with his martial arts talent, that Duan Yu mastered the Lingbo micro-step. If Zurich wants to learn various divine arts after graduation, it needs to find a place to lay a foundation. Su Li believes that there is no mental method more suitable for solidifying the foundation than Quanzhen teachings. Hua Jing has a solid foundation for learning the martial arts of the 18 dragon subduing palms and of the 9 Yin manual, because he has practiced the Quanzhen method taught to him by Ma Yu since childhood, so that he can get twice the result with half the effort. Su Li naturally knows how to weigh the pros and cons. His original plan was to find ways to learn some methods of closing the qi. Now it seems that he will join the Quanzhen sect, learn its internal mental skills, understand martial arts knowledge, lay a foundation, and then try to obtain the 9 Yin residual chapter. Thinking through this, Su Li's face instantly returned to normal and actively followed behind the Qingyun Taoist. Chuji Qingjing, this is the seniority ranking of the Quanzhen sect. The Qingyun in front of me is the 4th generation disciple of the Quanzhen sect, and his master is a Taoist of the Quanzhen sect's Ji generation. The two of them were chatting and laughing, and soon arrived at the foot of Zhongnan mountain, where people had gathered one after another. Benefactor, go ahead and wait directly. If you pass the test, someone will naturally take you into the mountain. Taoist Qingyun said, watching Su Li enter the crowd before turning around and leaving. Su Li stood in the crowd, looking around at the people who came to learn from their teachers. Some of these people are dressed in silk and satin, while others are dressed in coarse linen clothes, with resilient eyes. Without exception, they all come to learn from their teachers and are teenagers of 11 or 12 years old. Standing inside, Su Li, who is around 17 years old in height, looks a bit out of place. Su Li listened to other people's conversations and her heart became more and more agitated. Originally, the apprenticeship of the Quanzhen sect was divided into 2 batches, one of which was a simple Taoist who only focused on seeking immortality. There is another type of people nowadays who both want to practice martial arts and seek immortality. The former has no age requirement, while the latter is the younger the better. As for the reasons behind it, Su Li naturally knew that older people have already established their roots and bones, making it extremely difficult to achieve anything. Although Quanzhen sect does not specify an age limit, the disciples recruited each time are under 14 years old, which instantly made Su Li's heart skip a beat. He still wants to stay in Quanzhen sect to lay a foundation, but now it's okay. It's not a matter of whether he stays or not, it's whether they accept him or not. On the high platform, a stick of incense was about to burn out. The young people who were talking just now also said that after the incense was burned out, the people who came behind were no longer within the assessment range. At that time, it was also the time when the Quanzhen sect Taoist appeared. And whether they can pass the test is also up to them. It's done. Someone spoke out and everyone quickly tiptoed to look at the mountain gate. Although Su Li was the tallest, he couldn't help but tiptoe uncontrollably. They just didn't wait for the Taoists of the Quanzhen sect to come, but they waited for a monk. Little monk Jiumozhi heard that Quanzhen sect is a Taoist sect leader with ox ears, so he came specifically to worship the mountain. I hope all the Taoists will not hesitate to teach me. Everyone turned their heads to look at the mountain pass, only to see a yellow ball floating towards them. In the blink of an eye, it appeared on a huge rock in front of them. Only when he stands still can everyone see this person's appearance clearly. That was a monk, dressed in a yellow monk robe, less than 50 years old, wearing cloth clothes and sandals, with a lively expression on his face, as if there was a faint flow of precious light, just like pearls and jade, naturally glowing. Everyone looked at him a few times and felt a sense of admiration and closeness in their hearts. This posture does indeed have a hint of being a virtuous monk. The yellow color in their eyes just now was the color of the monk's robe. The monk used his lightness skills at an extremely fast speed, so in their eyes, it was just a lump of yellow. End of this chapter. Chapter 3 Jiumozhi. Quanzhen innate skill, little monk's heart towards it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Jiumozhi. Quanzhen innate skill, little monk's heart towards it, Jiumozhi. The Tibetan national teacher Jiumozhi. In the crowd, Su Li looked at the monk with hair in his eyes, full of pride, with a look of surprise in his eyes. Although he knew that the current world was a world of comprehensive martial arts, when Jiumozhi from the Heavenly Dragon and Quanzhen Sect from the Divine Eagle met, Su Li's sense of shock was still very strong in his heart. The Tibetan national teacher has come from afar, and I am honored to be a Quanzhen Sect. However, the national teacher is practicing Buddhism, while I am a Quanzhen Sect practicing Taoism. The two are vastly different. How can we compare them? A sound sounded. Everyone turned their heads towards the mountain gate and saw 6 people coming together, 5 men and 1 woman, each with a fairy-like demeanor, holding a brush of dust in their hands. These 6 people are exactly the remaining 6 of Quanzhen Chizi, one of whom, Tan Churue, died at the hands of Ouyang Feng more than 10 years ago. The one who just spoke up was Ma Yu, one of the 7 sons of Quanzhen, who is also the current leader. Unlike the fiery Qiu Chuji, he has the most gentle personality. He was the one who taught Guojing the Quanzhen Great Dao Song and the Golden Wild Goose technique in the past, despite public opinion. His martial arts skills are inferior to those of Qiu Chuji and Wang Qi, but he is the most trusted and liked by Wang Chongyang. The reason for this is that he puts cultivation first, which precisely creates his pure and gentle personality. Upon hearing the man's words, Jiumozhi's lips curled up, and his internal strength was suddenly released. The aura emanating forced Su Li and others who were preparing to join the Quanzhen sect not far in front of him to retreat a few steps, and a few thin and weak ones stumbled to the ground. You. Among the Taoist priests, a Taoist with a crane-haired and childlike appearance suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Jiumozhi with a burning gaze, as if he was about to start a big fight if he didn't agree. He is precisely Qiu Chuji, who has the most violent temperament among the 7 sons of Quanzhen. To practice Buddhism is to seek the Tao, and to practice Taoism is also to seek the Tao. Since they are all Tao, what is the difference? Jiumozhi's words left Su Limu stunned. He never expected that Jiumozhi, who was sincerely practicing Buddhism, would come up with a statement that Buddhism is the way. Zurich was surprised, but Jiumozhi continued to speak. Although I am far away in Tubo, I have also heard of the 5 wonders of the Song dynasty. In the past, during the Huashan swordsmanship, the founder of your sect, Wang Chongyang, used his innate skill to defeat the masses. Dali's 1 young finger, Beggar's dragon subduing 18 palms, White Camel Mountain's toad skill, and Taohua Island's Tanji divine skill were all defeated by your sect's ancestors' innate skill. I had an acquaintance with Mr. Murong back then, and he highly praised the Dali 6 Meridian Divine Sword and your sect's innate skill. But now that Mr. Murong has passed away, what I wish for is to bring the 6 Veins Divine Sword and the secret scripts of the innate skill to Mr. Murong's tomb and cremate them to comfort my dear friend's spirit in heaven. Jiumozhi made a loud speech, and Quanzhen sect and others initially watched the monk speak with a smile on their faces. After all, the phrase, your sect's founder defeated the other 4 masters with innate skills, was a genuine praise. The more they listened, the more they couldn't laugh, and some even pulled out their long swords from their waist. Qiu Chuji was the most direct, thrusting Fuchen straight behind his neck, holding his long sword in a desperate posture. This bandit bald donkey actually wants their innate skills. Yes, go all out. The momentum released by Jiumozhi just now is not something they can deal with at all. They have also seen the other 5 outstanding figures, whose martial arts are even stronger than Huang Yaoshi and Ouyang Feng. Bold. The innate skill is the supreme treasure of our sect, how can we casually hand it over to others? As soon as Jiumozhi's words were spoken, there was a great uproar of people, and various accusations kept coming and going. Jiumozhi had extremely thick skin. When he saw the noisy disciples of Quanzhen sect, he was not angry either. He just raised his lips and continued to use his internal strength, his voice overwhelming everyone present. Don't worry, everyone. After I receive the secret script, I will immediately go to Mr. Murong's grave to cremate it. I will not secretly peek. If you don't believe me, you can send someone to accompany me to Yanzhou. Besides, I don't know how to act like a white wolf with empty gloves. Please take a look, everyone. Jiumozhi smiled and said, his eyes fixed. He grabbed the package behind him with his right hand, threw it out, and then gently waved his right hand. That package exploded out of thin air, but the contents inside were not damaged at all. What's inside is a collection of secret books. 1 beat, 2 spreads. Ma Yu and others condensed their voices. The martial arts skill used by Jiumozhi just now is one of the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin, which can be easily defeated and scattered. Not bad, it's just one of the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin, said Jiumozhi with a smug expression in his eyes. Jiumozhi said, pointing to several thick secret books that he had brought to the stage. Dear benefactors, I am willing to exchange these 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin for you. I only hope that you can give me a copy of the rubbing book of the innate skill, and I will bring it to Mr. Murongbo's grave for cremation. The words fell silent in an instant. The disciples of the Quanzhen Sect who had previously angrily cursed Jiumozhi no longer spoke much, but turned their heads to look at Ma Yu, Chuji, and others. The name of a person, the shadow of a tree, and the reputation of Shaolin are not just for fun. The 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin are even more famous worldwide. Although both the Quanzhen Sect and Wudong are experts in Taoism, in terms of the number of experts, Wudong is far greater than the Quanzhen Sect. Moreover, some people in the martial arts world say that Quanzhen Sect is not worthy of being on par with Wudong. Although this is true, it sounds really hurtful. But if we can accept the 70.2 unique skills and rely on these divine skills, are we afraid that we won't be able to cultivate experts? As for Chuji and others, their eyes were also wide-eyed. What is the status of Shaolin? The great power of Wulin. Although his Quanzhen Sect is on par with Wudong in Taoism, it is far inferior to Shaolin in the martial arts world. And the 70.2 unique skills are exactly the foundation of Shaolin. Shaolin values them more than the foundation of life, but now these 70.2 unique skills have appeared in the hands of Jiumozhi. How can this not surprise them? Is it fake? Jiumozhi looked at the surprised expressions in everyone's eyes, his mouth curled up, and he was very satisfied with the expressions of these people. When he saw the 70.2 unique skills back then, he was just like these people. Jiumozhi's heart was calm, as if his innate skills were already in front of him. Excited heart, trembling hands. When Murongbo taught him the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin, he also revealed 1 or 2 skills, and then he completely fell. Now, it's his turn to use the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin to deceive others. No, it should be a trade-in. The 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin are exchanged for an innate skill, with a score of 70.2 to 1. Quanzhen Sect will make a lot of money, okay? Jiumozhi recited the Buddha's name softly, Amitabha Buddha, I am young and inexperienced. I am well aware that what I say may not necessarily be trusted by all the Taoists. You all doubt whether this Shaolin 70.2 skill is true or false, it's just human nature. There are 3 finger techniques in Shaolin 70.2 skill, and I have been researching them recently. Today, I will present myself before everyone. It's time to showcase real technology. Jiumozhi said as he jumped off the stone, I am just interested in exploring freely, and my learning is very crude. I hope all the Taoist masters can give me guidance. This way of pointing is like picking flowers. After Jiumozhi finished speaking, he saw his right thumb and index finger lightly touching each other, as if he had picked up a flower, his face smiling, and his left 5 fingers flicking to the right. The stone in front of him instantly exploded, causing Ma Yu and others to furrow their brows. It was not that Jiumozhi's fingering technique was not finger-picking, but rather that they did not expect that this monk was truly proficient in the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin. This is Wuxiang Jieji. This is the Doraemon finger. Jiumozhi is like a boastful elementary school student, showcasing all the finger techniques he has mastered one by one. Finally, after finishing his work, he stood on the previous stone with a face full of spring breeze. Yes, that's right, that's the expression. Just look at me like this, don't stop. Comfortable. Jiumozhi squinted his eyes and slowly opened his hands, looking extremely satisfied. When he heard about the collection of martial arts from all over the world in the Huanche water pavilion of the Murong family, he also had this expression. He wants to obtain the Dali 6 Meridians divine sword and the innate skill of Quanzhen Sect, which is to enter the Shishui pavilion and read the martial arts classics of the world. This is his agreement with Murong Bo. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Shameless Jiumozhi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Shameless Jiumozhi. Although Ma Yu and others were shocked, they did not express anything. Jiumozhi frowned and continued, if you all want me to demonstrate the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin one by one, I have plenty of time. When these people thought that only 3 of the 70.2 unique skills in his hand were true, Jiumozhi Chuan's temper immediately rose and they wanted to use Shaolin's 70.2 unique skills one by one to prove that what he said was true. He disliked 2 things the most in his life, one of which was having unparalleled martial arts skills that he could not cultivate. Secondly, some people question his martial arts skills. National teacher misunderstood. Ma Yu gently flicked the dust and glanced in the direction of Qiu Chuji beside her. Qiu Chuji and Ma Yu looked at each other for a moment, as if they had seen through in an instant. Their bodies shook and they threw their long sword aside, directly into the scabbard of the person next to them. Then he took off the dust from his neck and whispered, "Blessed is the infinite heavenly sovereign." He has been practicing for many years, but his temper has not yet restrained. It's really unacceptable. We are not interested in the unique skills of Shaolin. The innate skill is the secret that my Quanzhen sect does not pass down. If a national teacher wants to learn, they need to abandon the Buddha and ask questions, and then join my Quanzhen sect to practice the Quanzhen Avenue song to a very high level. Our understanding and comprehension of the Taoist method have also reached our recognition, and then we can practice the innate skill. Ma Yu said softly. Jiumozhi's face was gloomy. After Ma Yu finished speaking, the monk's robe suddenly waved, "It's just that you don't want to exchange, why bother finding these excuses?" Qiu Chuji's pale hair fluttered in the wind, and he shouted sternly, "I just don't want to exchange. Can the national teacher still force us to exchange? Although my Quanzhen sect is not a match for the national teacher, there are thousands of disciples in the sect, but I am willing to work hard with the national teacher." After Qiu Chuji finished speaking, he shook the dust in his hand, and the disciples below drew their swords one after another. It's either a gathering of 3 or 3, or a gathering of a dozen or a few dozen people, or a gathering of dozens or even hundreds of people. On the high platform, Ma Yu and 6 others, along with a Taoist priest in his 30s, presented a Big Dipper-like appearance, with a posture of ready to fight if they didn't agree. They are all using the formation created by Wang Chongyang back then. There are 3 talented formations, 4 elephant formations, 8 trigrams formations, and so on. However, the most powerful ones among them are also the Beidu formation and the Tiangang Beidu formation. The Tiangang Beidu formation, also known as the formation formed by Ma Yu and 7 others, is the highest level of mystical martial arts in the Quanzhen sect. This is a formation used by the 7 members of Quanzhen Taoist to collectively defend against the enemy. When facing the enemy, only one palm is used, while the other palm is placed on the person next to them. When the enemy attacks, the person who is the first to face the enemy does not need to use their strength to parry, but is flanked by the Taoist couple next to them to launch a counterattack. It is like one person possessing the skills of several people, and its power is unmatched. The Beidu formation, on the other hand, is the collective defense weapon of the Quanzhen sect against enemies. 14 heavenly gang Baidu formations were formed by arranging a formation of 90.8 people, each in a group of 7. Together with every 7 Baidu formations, a great Baidu formation was formed, forming a unique and mutually reinforcing formation, forming horns and possessing infinite power. Jiumozhi looked at the Quanzhen Taoist who suddenly turned around, his face suddenly changed, and he placed his palm on his chest with a posture of ready to take action. He really can't understand these Taoists, isn't he just borrowing martial arts skills? As for being so stingy. It's true that the martial arts world is so stagnant because of these ordinary people. Sharing one's own martial arts like a monk, isn't it good for everyone to progress together? Also, if we really want to fight, why not fight alone and have to fight in groups? Quanzhen Sect is so shameless. Isn't it true that the Quanzhen Sect should also deceive the few with the many? In the future, when I spread to the martial arts world, how will people around the world view you? Jiumozhi shouted loudly, and as soon as these words were spoken, Ma Yu and others were really a bit cautious. The sect founded by the founder of Zhongnan, with a great reputation, cannot be buried in their hands. The slightest damage to their reputation is a huge loss for them. Wang Qi, one of the 7 sons of Quanzhen, shouted sternly, "The national teacher is so aggressive, isn't it difficult not to be afraid of the ridicule of the people all over the world?" Upon hearing this, Jiumozhi sneered. Who is he? Tibetan national teacher Jiumozhi. Does someone else's opinion have something to do with him? After finishing this order, he went to Dali and obtained the 6 meridian divine sword. He then sent it to Gusu Yanzhou for burning. Of course, on the way there, he accidentally looked through it, which was also reasonable. When he arrived at Yanzhou, he forcibly memorized all the secret scripts in the returning water pavilion, and then returned to Tubo to cultivate divine skills. When the 6 meridian divine sword and innate skill were achieved, he returned to the Great Song dynasty and personally went to Shaolin to learn the Shaolini Jing. By this calculation, it has been a long time since then. It's not certain whether everyone in the martial arts world can remember this matter. What is he afraid of? Anyway, he's not from the Song dynasty, he's actually from the Quanzhen Sect. They're going to work in the Song dynasty. What a perfect plan. Seeing Jiumozhi's indifferent expression, everyone sighed. If Uncle Zhou Baotong were here, why would he be so? Just now, the national teacher's internal power has been unleashed, with an immensely powerful force. I and others believe that I am not an opponent, but if the national teacher is still so aggressive, then no wonder we are bullying too much. Ma Yu gently waved the dust and said softly. His appearance of being weak and reasonable really turned Qumoji's angry face red and blue. Seeing the disciples of Quanzhen Sect marching forward in formation, Jiumozhi's heart became even more restless. Suddenly, he looked up and laughed, "Ha ha ha, why did the national teacher laugh?" The only woman among the 7 sons of Quanzhen asked. "Do you think that with so many people, you can capture me?" Jiumozhi snorted coldly, his eyes filled with disdain. Ma Yu's eyes were filled with no joy or sadness, and he whispered, "Blessed is the infinite heavenly sovereign." The national teacher is an extraordinary expert with martial arts skills that contribute to the transformation of nature. If the national teacher wants to leave, we naturally cannot stop him. But if the national teacher wants to bully the weak, my Quanzhen Sect will consume hundreds of lives, and we can still perish together with the national teacher. Upon hearing this, Jiumozhi raised his lips and said, "I once received the care of Mr. Murong. I will fulfill his last wish no matter what. Even though I have spent decades in Quanzhen Sect, I will fulfill Mr. Murong's last wish. I am alone, and in decades, I can leave at any time, but I don't know. At that time, will the Quanzhen Sect still be today's Quanzhen Sect?" Jiumozhi shouted coldly, and upon hearing this, the Taoist priests were filled with anger in their eyes. However, deep down, there was a strong sense of fear. As Jiumozhi said, his martial arts skills are indeed remarkable. If the other party wants to escape, they will definitely not be able to stop him. Jiumozhi could easily cause them to stumble in the dark. With Jiumozhi guarding near the Quanzhen Sect, their disciples of the Quanzhen Sect can't even think of going down the mountain. If they were just martial arts sects, it wouldn't be a big deal. It depends on who can afford it, but they are still Taoist sects with the mission of spreading the concept of Quanzhen Taoism. Not to mention decades of being surrounded by people for a month is a huge loss. I have spoken lies for the sake of Mr. Murong, and I hope all the Taoists can forgive me. Jiumozhi saw the Taoists getting entangled and immediately showed weakness. Just as the Taoist priests were puzzled by Jiumozhi's meaning, Jiumozhi spoke up, "The competition I mentioned is not a competition between me and the Taoist masters." Oh. How would the national teacher like to compete? Ma Yu frowned and asked. Jiumozhi raised his lips and took a step forward. I have heard that the disciples of Quanzhen Sect are talented. The skills of the Taoist masters in training their disciples are also like thunder in the martial arts world. Jiumozhi's sudden praise did not cause any change in the expressions of Ma Yu and others. Well, except for Jiumozhi, this old man was bowing his head, as if congested, and he remembered his former disciple, Yang Kong. I'm not talented, I want to compete with all the Taoist priests to see if they can teach me this skill. The young monk came coincidentally. These donors are all young students who have never been apprenticed and have no martial arts skills. Let's each choose one of these donors and teach them martial arts. One day later, let them compete to see who is better. How about that? Jiumozhi clasped his hands together and arched his hand, asking. Ma Yu and others exchanged glances and then said, "The matter is of great importance, we need to discuss it." Jiumozhi's lips curved as he said, "Please do as you please, Taoist priests. However, if you do not agree, I will have to stay in Quanzhen for 7 or 8 years. After all, I will fulfill the last wish of the old benefactor Murong no matter what." Ma Yu and others angrily shook the dust and then walked inside. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Eating melons and eating yourself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Eating melons and eating yourself. What do you think, junior brothers? If we don't agree, this Tibetan national teacher may not be good anymore. In a side hall, Ma Yu asked. Jiumozhi angrily hammered the nearby pillar, causing it to tremble. If Uncle Zhou were here, we wouldn't have had to endure this kind of anger, but unfortunately, Uncle Zhou's divine dragon can see the head but not the tail. Senior brother, if you ask me, let's just compete with that Jiumozhi. After all, he is also a Tibetan national teacher. The old Taoist doesn't believe that he will abandon Tibet for a secret script. The meaning of Jiumozhi is very clear, which is procrastination. He gambled that Jiumozhi was deceiving them. Ma Yu shook her head slowly and said, "What if what Jiumozhi said is true? Master has the mandate to let us spread the Quanzhen Taoism. If we are delayed by those monks for a year and a half, our Quanzhen Taoism will suffer heavy losses. I know what you're trying to say, but it's just a matter of dragging him down first and then searching for Zhou Shishu. But his old man is like a dragon in a daze. I just heard that he's traveling in Mengyuan, and now no one knows where he has gone." Ma Yu shook his head slowly, and the option of shaking people could also be ruled out. To put it bluntly, time was not enough. He still has to spread the Quanzhen Dao. Jiumozhi looked at his senior brother, who was responsible for promoting the Quanzhen Dao, and sighed helplessly, "Is it really difficult for us to compete with him? So what if we don't compare?" Sun Bu'er's temper was also not good, and he shouted sternly, "If thousands of us flock together, of course we can kill him, but it is also based on the fact that Jiumozhi and we will have a life or death battle. If Jiumozhi wants to escape, we cannot stop him. He stays next to the Quanzhen Sect. If our disciples walk alone, they will definitely be killed by him." If Jiumozhi heard Sun Bu'er's words, he would definitely shout injustice, as he had never killed a single person in his life. It's just that Quanzhen Sect and others probably won't believe this. After all, they haven't seen such an evil monk before. The 3 precepts of greed, anger, and ignorance have been repeated. It's not impossible for me to say and compete. The corner of Wang Chu's mouth lifted and he smiled as he spoke. The Taoist priests all looked at Wang Chu one after another at the foot of the mountain. Jiumozhi looked at Ma Yu and others who had walked out again, and the corners of his mouth raised. What do you think, Taoist priests? Ma Yu and a few others exchanged glances and then said, we agree. However, the national teacher is an extraordinary expert, and we don't know how many exquisite martial arts he has in his hands. It's better for us to impart the same martial arts skills, so that we can fairly demonstrate the level of teaching on both sides. How about that? Jiumozhi thought for a moment and nodded heavily. Your Taizu long fist from the great Song dynasty is also something that I have learned. Why don't we just teach this martial art? Taizu Changquan is a boxing technique that has existed since the founding of the Song dynasty. Widely circulated among the people. The Beggars sect had disputes with other countries to protect the great Song dynasty. During his seclusion, the leader of the Beggars sect, Xiao Feng, once came to Tubo and injured many skilled soldiers with Taizu long fist. Jiumozhi was naturally dissatisfied, and Xiao Feng was able to turn Taizu Changquan into a miracle. Jiumozhi was also able to do so, so by chance, he also practiced this Taizu Changquan and had his own unique understanding. As soon as Jiumozhi spoke, Wang Chui and others on stage couldn't help but exchange glances, their eyes filled with surprise. To teach the same martial arts is just their talk. They originally wanted to teach Taizu long fist together. If Jiumozhi said that he would not, they would take the opportunity to say that he would also teach a basic martial arts of Tubo, and then they would compete with each other, and they would teach Taizu long fist. I just didn't expect that Kikumoto would take the initiative to propose it, which saved them a lot of effort. Wang Chi looked at Ma Yu and others, gently flicking the dust in his hand. Then he walked up and whispered, the national teacher is a senior expert, but I don't know how skilled this disciple is. Should we choose the national teacher first, or should we choose first? As Wang Chu's words fell, Chiu Chuji standing beside him immediately stood up and said, we don't know how much stronger the martial arts skills of the national teacher are than us. How could they choose us first? Hearing Wang Chui's retort, blushed. He had intended to take advantage of the situation to say, young monk first, but when Chiu Chuji said this, he had no idea of refuting. Not talking about martial arts, moral kidnapping is right. Since it is the competition proposed by the monk, it is natural for everyone to choose first, so that it can be fair. Jiumozhi reluctantly extended his hand to signal. Ma Yu and others seemed to be waiting for Jiumozhi to say these words. In an instant, Chiu Chuji jumped off the high platform and walked to the side of a young man in the crowd. We'll choose this person. Upon seeing this, Jiumozhi frowned instantly. Although he was a bit silly, he was not foolish. Chiu Chuji didn't even think about it and went straight to the young man's side. Obviously, he had already understood this person, and his actions were all planned. Being able to let the other party directly choose, that young man, not only proficient in the martial arts of Taizu long fist, must also have a foundation. Looking at that young man's appearance again, well, compared to other peers, his figure is quite burly. His hands are even more powerful and powerful. Not to mention studying for 3 or 4 years, there must be 1 or 2 years. How can we fight this? No matter how well he teaches, there is no way for that person's one day to be worth a year or even 2 of this young man's hard work. Jiumozhi was in a state of confusion when he suddenly caught a glimpse of a person standing out among the crowd. Compared to other children, this person's height is simply too eye-catching. The others are all children. The youngest is 8 years old, and the oldest is only 12 or 13 years old. What about this person? At a glance, Kikumoto could guess that this person was around 17 years old. I don't have enough foundation, come and gather strength. The older you are, the stronger your strength will be. This is common sense. Jiumozhi smiled at the corners of his mouth and pointed his sword fingers at the tallest man in the crowd. Me. In the crowd, Su Li widened her eyes in astonishment. Not bad, it's exactly the donor. Jiumozhi spoke in a restrained voice, then went up and down to Su Li's side, grabbed Su Li's shoulder, and suddenly exerted force, leading Su Li to the previous boulder. Su Li's face turned red, and he was just pulled by a huge force before gliding in the air. The feeling was really peculiar. It's a bit stimulating. Ma Yu and others exchanged glances for a while, and finally nodded together. Tomorrow at this time, we will meet again on the mountain. If we are lucky enough to win, we hope the national teacher can leave quickly. Jiumozhi snorted coldly, and even if Ma Yu and others broke their words, he would not agree at the moment. If he loses, he will ask for another comparison. As for the reason, Ma Yu and others have found a young man with a foundation in martial arts, which is very unfair. Well, that's it. I'm really smart. Ma Yu frowned as he watched Jiumozhi and the young man leave. Upon seeing this, Wang Chu chuckled softly and said, "Senior brother, don't worry, Zhou Yu Jia has a martial arts school and teaches him Taizu Long Fist. He has been practicing this martial arts for 4 years. Even though that person is older than Zhou Yu, the other person has never practiced martial arts, and their strength is only between Buizhong and Zhou Yu. Even Zhou Yu's strength is stronger than that person's. We just need to impart some experience of traveling against enemies and engage in combat with them, and we will definitely be foolproof." Ma Yu sighed and said, "I hope so." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Impossible, this is impossible. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Impossible, this is impossible. On the back mountain, Su Li stood on a cliff and glanced down at Jiumozhi sitting on the edge of the cliff. Su Li calmly moved aside and said, "National teacher, can we move to another place? This place is really too high." Su Li couldn't understand why so many martial arts experts like to teach others martial arts on cliffs and cliffs. Jiumozhi remained silent and stared at Su Li with such a burning gaze. "Benefactor, your foundation is excellent. Why are you only starting to practice martial arts now? It's really a waste." Jiumozhi's sudden words left Su Li somewhat confused. He actually understood this sentence, and Jiumozhi was praising him for his solid foundation and being a good martial arts practitioner. He just doesn't know why Kikumoto said that. Jiumozhi looked at Su Li's bewildered gaze, his smile even greater. He thought that the person he had chosen was just a slightly older guy. He originally wanted him to use his strength to help him win a game with his age advantage, but when he caught this guy just now, he instinctively used his internal strength to check his body. Who would have thought that this guy's bones were so good? The so-called root bone refers to the innate qualities of the human body, including various aspects such as bones, which are very mysterious. A person who practices martial arts, with their roots and bones, intelligence, and diligence, is indispensable. Practitioners have excellent roots and can easily perform some moves that ordinary people cannot, such as backflips, splits, and so on. And if the root bone is excellent, the meridians in the body are incredibly smooth, and cultivating internal skills is also faster than other people in the martial arts world. Afterwards, there comes comprehension. Being able to perform the movements in exquisite moves does not mean that he learns martial arts quickly, but comprehension is equally important. The coherence and learning of martial arts moves rely entirely on understanding. Even if you are able to perform the actions, if your understanding is not enough, you will have to learn every move for 3 to 4 days, which is really exhausting. However, for Kikumoto, although his roots and intelligence are equally outstanding, he believes that among the three, diligence is the most important. You should know that it is his tireless study and practice day and night that has led to today's achievements. "Teacher, is my bone very good?" Jiumozhi came to his senses from his past glory and looked at Su Li beside him, his eyes full of hopeful light. Jiumozhi was extremely emotional. Well, it looked like he had just practiced martial arts. The bone is excellent, but compared to the little monk, it's still a bit inferior. Jiumozhi told a lie against his heart and then silently recited Amitabha Buddha 100 times, hoping that his great Buddha could forgive him this time. Su Li was unaware of Jiumozhi's thoughts, but Su Li did not think it was embarrassing to be inferior to Jiumozhi. You should know that in the original work, Jiumozhi's martial arts are definitely not inferior, and he can also rank among the top in the entire Tianlong. The main reason why Jiumozhi gives people a weak impression is that he only plays peak games. Duan Yu, who learned the 6 Meridian Divine Sword and was able to cheat halfway, Su Zhu, who directly stole accounts, and Tianlong boss Sweeping Monk. These are all the former honors of Jiumozhi. The unique techniques of Tantric Buddhism, such as the flame knife, Taoism's little wuxiang skill, Shaolin's 70.2 unique skills, and the Yi Jin Jing, have all been learned by Jiumozhi. In terms of his talent for learning martial arts, Su Li believes that only Xiao Feng can be compared to Jiumozhi in the original work. Is it embarrassing to be inferior to Kikumoto? It's not embarrassing at all, okay? I hope your understanding is also impressive. If you can learn the 4 moves, I will be satisfied. Jiumozhi suddenly stood up and couldn't wait. He couldn't wait to teach the moves of Su Li Taizu's long fist. I originally wanted to communicate and exchange life philosophy with Su Li, so that this kid wouldn't be willing to seriously learn martial arts due to Quanzhen's teachings. Now, looking at this kid's appearance, it saves this step. The Taizu Long Fist, also known as the Song Taizu 32 style Long Fist, also known as the Taizu Fist, is said to be a true legacy of the training of soldiers by Emperor Taizu of the Song dynasty, Zhao Kuangyin. It is a combination of soldiers' actual combat experience on the battlefield. This boxing technique emphasizes practical combat, with rigorous routines, flexible movements, distinct moves, short and reliable long fights, and strong explosive power. Jiumozhi briefly introduced Su Li and then shook his monk robe, tying the hem around his waist to facilitate his movements. The first style, lazy tie up. Lazily putting on clothes and going out on a shelf, changing the momentum and taking a single whip in an instant. If you don't have the courage to face the enemy first, you will be able to see and handle it with your own eyes. After drinking, Jiumozhi made a gesture of starting, and Su Li looked a bit confused. It's not that he can't understand Jiumozhi's movements, but rather that the few words Jiumozhi muttered made Su Li feel a bit dizzy. He doesn't even understand what Jiumozhi means. But there must be no problem following suit. Su Li drew a gourd, and followed the posture of Jiumozhi to make a gesture. Joking, what is the identity of Kikumoto? The 4 wonders of the heavenly dragon. If such a person doesn't learn martial arts well, then he's just a fool. As for the identity of Kikumoto, is it important? Jiumozhi came to Quanzhen Sect to cause trouble, and Su Li was not willing to join Quanzhen Sect either. Both of them don't have to be here, second brother laughing at big brother. Su Lisan worked hard to come all the way to Quanzhen Sect, for what reason? It's not just for practicing martial arts, but now the master is teaching himself martial arts. What else does he have to choose from? Master, I don't understand the few words you just said. Su Li asked while posing. Upon hearing this, Jiumozhi couldn't help but look at Su Li on the side. Just as he was about to take the next move, Jiumozhi was stunned. What a standard lazy tie. Jiumozhi quickly got up and circled around Su Li. After pondering in my heart, I didn't answer Su Li's question, but continued to move on. The second type of Golden Rooster Independence, and the third type of Scout, were all used by him one by one. Zurich was about to continue questioning when he saw that Jiumozhi had made another move, so he quickly followed suit and started learning. 4 words, rare opportunity. Quickly, the entire set of Taizu Long Fist was used by Jiumozhi. Jiumozhi stood on the side, his mouth slightly open, watching Su Li, who had used his last move to descend the mountain with a fierce tiger, speechless for a moment. He thought Su Li's bones were unparalleled in the world, but he didn't expect his intelligence to be so powerful. What exactly is this kid from? He just played Taizu Long Fist once, and this guy just watched it once and then used these moves one by one, and they were quite standard. He just asked Su Li, "Have you really never practiced martial arts?" Su Li shook her head repeatedly, and her smile was already on the corner of her mouth. He is not a fool, so he naturally understands the implied meaning of Jiumozhi, which is nothing more than marveling at his exceptional talent. Just now's move, you go over it again from start to finish. Jiumozhi said again. He can't accept it. He is very proud of certain things about himself, such as his unforgettable ability, his profound understanding, and his martial arts skills. But right now, there are people who are even stronger than him in terms of fundamental understanding. He can't accept it. His dream never changed, becoming the number one in the world, and then collecting all the divine arts and martial arts from the martial arts world. This so-called number one in the world should not only be based on martial arts, but also on fundamental understanding. Upon hearing this, Su Li nodded slowly, recalling the scene demonstrated by Jiumozhi just now in her mind. However, the more she recalled, the more Su Li furrowed her brows. It's a bit strange. Jiumozhi saw Su Li frown and couldn't help but raise the corner of his mouth. That's right. Is that right? You have to be worried when practicing martial arts for the first time. Jiumozhi saw Su Li's worried expression and his mood improved a lot, but for a moment he forgot that he was asking Su Li for a martial arts competition. The way of practicing martial arts is like sailing against the current. Those of us who practice martial arts should learn to face setbacks. Jiumozhi was about to comfort Su Li, but the next moment, Su Li started moving. One move in one go, extremely standardized, and the movements are very coherent, with no signs of any pauses or stagnation. Is this guy's backbone and intelligence so good? Jiumozhi's shock left Su Li unaware. He was now fully immersed in his own mind. When Su Lijiang just remembered Taizu Long Fist, the scene of Jiumozhi demonstrating Taizu Long Fist appeared in Su Lijiang's mind, as if pressing the slow down button. Su Lijiang only needed to demonstrate the moves one by one according to the picture in his mind. The whole set of Taizu Long Fist drill was completed, and Su Li looked excitedly at Jiumozhi. "Teacher, how did I practice?" Joking, this is the first martial arts skill that Su Li learned after coming to the world of comprehensive martial arts. How could he not be excited? Jiumozhi's eyes widened greatly, and he muttered, "How could it be possible? How could I be compared to others for my innate talent?" Kikumoto had a flushed face and ears, like a primary school student who consistently ranked first in exams but was outdone by others. "I don't believe it anymore." Jiumozhi looked at Su Li, who was startled by Jiumozhi's sudden hostility and retreated in succession. However, the next moment, Jiumozhi changed his face in an instant, which made Su Li suspect that he had just misread. In an instant when Su Li was stunned, he saw Jiumozhi approaching him, and a secret book was thrown over. Su Li hurriedly took it and looked down. There were 5 big characters written on it. Wei Tuo Fu Mo Jian. The benefactor's talent is unparalleled, and I am overjoyed in my heart. However, the Taizu Long Fist is just an entry-level martial art of the Song Dynasty warriors, far from this martial art. This Wei Tuo Demon Suppression Sword is a secret book that I found back then. You may want to take a look at the sword technique recorded in this book, and let me see how talented the benefactor is. If the benefactor truly has unparalleled talent, then I can teach according to my aptitude. Jiumozhi is quite dissatisfied. Taizu Long Fist is really too simple. He had the intention to challenge Su Li's intelligence. Since the competition was taking place, he naturally needed to use high-level martial arts skills. That's why I came up with this Weituofu Demon Sword. Weituo Fumo Sword is also one of the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin. Jiumozhi has watched all the other 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin because he doesn't like to use swords. He was the last to learn swordsmanship, and now that he has learned this way to Officialdom sword, this secret book happens to be carried by him. He carried the secret script of the way to a demon's sword with him, and had not yet read it. He came to learn it with Su Li, just looking at the moves above, to see who would learn first. Well, that's it. Su Li has never been in contact with swordsmanship, and he has also not practiced swordsmanship. The two of them are equally fair and just. If Su Li knew what Hatoyama thought in his heart, he would definitely complain about roast. He has never seen such a brazen person. Even if Jiumozhi had never practiced swordsmanship, how could Su Li compare this guy's knowledge? By analogy, Kikumoto's advantage is simply boundless. Su Li was unaware of Jiumozhi's thoughts, and he was shocked by his handwriting at the moment. One of the 70.2 unique martial arts skills of Shaolin, can you just give it to me? Su Li just opened it and saw that the first half of this secret script is a picture of the moves, while the back is a densely packed font that records the cultivation experiences and mental methods of predecessors. This is one of the genuine 70.2 unique skills of the way to Officialdom sword. If this thing were to be put into the martial arts world, it would also be the existence of everyone grabbing their heads. Is that how Jiumozhi gave himself? As for the secret script that Jiumozhi said he found, Su Li naturally didn't believe it. Who's so lucky to be able to find the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin? Jiumozhi looked at Su Li, who was overjoyed, with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Shaolin's 70.2 unique skills are all there is to it. As for being so excited. If it weren't for the thought that this martial arts skill would be widely spread and not suitable, he would even be willing to share it with the people of the world for cultivation, so that he would be more convincing after becoming the number one in the world. Furthermore, although the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin are powerful, there are still many martial arts skills in the world that surpass the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin. Short-sighted, really short-sighted. Learn more from the little monk. How good is it to be calm in anger and joy? Amitabha Buddha. Jiumozhi recited the Buddha's name softly, almsgiver, give it a try as soon as possible. I understand the true talent of the almsgiver before I can teach according to my aptitude. This competition is very important for me, and I hope you can do your best. After Jiumozhi finished speaking, he thought of Su Li's gaze when he looked at the secret script of Wei Tuo's demon sword just now, as if he thought of himself. His voice couldn't help but become gentle, with a hint of bewitching. If the donor is extremely talented and helps me win this battle, I can teach him one of the 70.2 unique skills. The progress of martial arts in Quanzhen Sect is slow. As long as the donor achieves success in learning, where can the world go? Why waste hard work in Quanzhen Sect? Is this statement from the national teacher true? Su Li's eyes shone brightly. Quanzhen teaches martial arts very well, and Su Li does not deny it, but wasting time is also true. Anyway, accepting Wu Yazi's lifelong skill is Su Li's ultimate goal. Before that, Su Li only needs to have the power to protect himself. Joining the Quanzhen sect is to have the power of self-protection. Learning martial arts from Jiumozhi is also to have the power of self-protection. The latter has a faster learning speed, why not do it? Monks do not lie. Jiumozhi clasped his hands together and said in a condensed voice. Su Li pursed his lips, believing that Jiumozhi was more trustworthy than believing that a sow could climb a tree. However, even if he agreed to Kikumoto, he seemed to have no losses either. Well, it's done. Su Li flipped through the secret script in his hand, and Jiumozhi stood behind him, looking at the script in Su Li's hand, taking it more seriously than ever before. He also spared no effort. Today, let young people know his abilities. Signed, everyone add a bookshelf, rest assured to invest, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Kikumoto was hit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Kikumoto was hit. Su Li flipped through the secret script of the Waichuofu demon sword in her hand. Zurich first flipped through 2 pages and was about to scroll down, but when she recalled the previous content in her heart, she found that the content on the first 2 pages was incredibly clear and deeply imprinted in her mind. What situation is unforgettable? Su Li quickly flipped the secret script back to the first page. He needs to double-check. Behind Su Li, Jiumozhi's face showed a look of disdain. Really, why bother flipping through it again? No, there really isn't someone who can't remember everything, right? As a genius who never forgets, it should be the standard configuration, right? Jiumozhi gently shook his head and sighed, but if he looked closely, the smile on the corner of his mouth couldn't be hidden. I am afraid that my brother will suffer, and I am afraid that he will lead the way. No, it should be because I am afraid that Su Li's talent will not affect the competition, and I am also afraid that Su Li's talent will be too good to surpass him. But now it seems that he still has the upper hand. Poor monk Jiumozhi, have you looked at it yet? Forget it. Jiumozhi was feeling complacent when suddenly Su Li in front of him started flipping through the secret script faster. Jiumozhi was shocked and couldn't think about Su Li's thoughts anymore. He quickly gathered his energy and carefully examined the secret script in Su Li's hand. In terms of reading, he has never been afraid of anyone. During the tea time, Jiumozhi's forehead was sweating profusely, while Su Li was incredibly relaxed, with a surprised smile on his lips. Who? Benefactor, have you all taken note of it? Jiumozhi was panting heavily, and Su Li was flipping through it a bit too quickly. He was overworked, so he was sweating profusely. Fortunately, he had memorized all the moves on the secret script. National teacher, I have all written it down. But in the wilderness, we don't have swords either. Should we not use branches instead? Su Li looked around and pointed to the trees in the distance. Jiumozhi shook his head slowly, with a hint of sneer at the corner of his mouth. I'm going to borrow 2 of them, young monk. After Jiumozhi finished speaking, he suddenly clapped his hand, and the grass 30 steps behind him exploded, revealing 2 panicked disciples of the Quanzhen Sect hiding inside. Jiumozhi leaped forward like a startled swan, and in the blink of an eye, he reached out to the 2 of them. Without waiting for them to draw their swords, he grabbed their long swords and said, 2 of you, borrow your swords. After finishing his drink, Jiumozhi waved his left sleeve robe and threw the 2 of them away with a strong force. However, as they landed, a soft force lifted them up. 2 benefactors, the day of the competition is set for tomorrow. Please tell Taoist Mayu that if the Quanzhen Sect is full of petty people, then this competition is not worth it. After Jiumozhi finished speaking, the 2 of them quickly fled backwards. Upon seeing this, Jiumozhi let out a cold snort and threw out his right hand, landing a refined steel long sword in front of Su Li. I have borrowed a long sword, benefactor, why don't you try using the Waitua demon suppression sword? Jiumozhi clasped his hands together and whispered softly. Su Li's cheek twitched, what if borrow? However, Su Li was not polite either. He picked up the fine steel long sword on the ground, good guy, its weight is really not light. Su Li drew his long sword and tried his hand. Jiumozhi, a monk holding a long sword, was indeed somewhat indecent. Just as he was preparing to concentrate on watching Su Li perform the Waitua sword technique, to his surprise, Su Li threw the long sword in his hand to the ground. Master Su, what do you mean by this? Jiumozhi was stunned and asked. National teacher, this long sword is too heavy and inconvenient for me to use. I'll use branches instead. Su Li said. Jiumozhi finally realized that no matter how strong Su Li's bones were, he couldn't use a refined steel long sword to perform a complete set of martial arts without any internal strength at the moment. Even before Su Li can complete the entire set of martial arts, Su Li's movements will deform. Su Li's strength has surpassed that of ordinary people, but he still cannot compare with those who have internal skills. Jiumozhi would naturally agree to Su Li's request. Even if Jiumozhi wants to win, he must win with integrity. Su Li couldn't help but let out a deep breath when he saw that Jiumozhi agreed. Jiumozhi said that if Su Li really had outstanding talent, he would give Su Li another Shaolin 70.2 unique skills. Of course, Su Li will not miss this opportunity. With no foundation, Su Li is now using his long sword to perform martial arts, which is simply counterproductive. Quickly, a branch of the tree reached Su Li's hand. It was very light in weight, not to mention as if there was nothing, but at least it was much more comfortable than using a long sword. "We're starting," Su Lining shouted in a loud voice, and then there was a movement. Su Li's current use of the Huaichuofu demon sword feels no different from using the Taizu long fist. The moves of both were imprinted in Su Li's mind. Su Li simply restored the actions in his mind one by one, and the only difference was that the move of Weitua Fumo's sword was more difficult than Taizu Changquan. However, this is just causing Su Li to put in more effort. Soon, a complete set of swordsmanship was displayed by Su Li. On the side, Kikumoto stared intently at Su Li's movements, starting with a furrowed brow. Now, Kikumoto has completely relaxed his brow. Su Li's talent is indeed terrifying. However, a strong player has a strong hand. When Su Li finished the exercise and looked at himself, Jiumozhi quickly put away the smile on his mouth, and commented with an expert posture, "Your talent is really good, and this Huaichuofu magic sword technique is also flawless. However, although the moves in your hand are the same as the first mock examination in the secret script, they are less spiritual," Jiumozhi said, and then he began to move. The same Weitua Fumo sword, in Jiumozhi's hands, appeared incredibly smooth. You can tell at a glance which one is stronger or weaker. After using the Huaichuofu demon sword, Kikumoto casually threw the long sword aside. He really didn't like to use the sword. In his opinion, the blade of the weapon will always be lost, and only his hands will never give up. Compared to swordsmanship, he prefers martial arts on his fists and feet. The Huaichuofu demon sword used by the national teacher is much more exquisite than mine, I admire it. Su Liqing thought to himself. Jiumozhi's mouth curved upwards, and all he was waiting for was this sentence. "Oh, I saw it all, I voluntarily gave up." In terms of talent, is it still his Kikumoto who is superior? However, national teacher, I'll give it another try, take a look. Su Li recalled the difference between the Huaichuofu demon sword wielded by Jiumozhi and the one he wielded, and the more he realized it, he immediately spoke and picked up a branch, walking towards the open space on the side. Jiumozhi squinted his eyes as he watched Su Li perform his swordsmanship. As Su Li's moves were executed, Jiumozhi's squinted eyes became even larger, and in the end, he even slightly opened his mouth. He was wrong, Su Li is not extremely talented, he is simply a demon. Newcomers on the road, seeking investment, monthly tickets, and collectibles. Thank you all for your hard work. Please click on a new page to increase the number of followers. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Do national teachers know the 9 manual? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Do national teachers know the 9 manual? Use the move according to the secret script to restore the angle and strength of the move to the same level as in the secret script. This is just the best way to practice martial arts. You should know that the predecessors who created this martial arts are different from those who practice it, in terms of height and physique. However, the insights and moves on the secret script, as well as the strength and angle of the moves, are only the most suitable for the predecessors who created this secret script, not for everyone. If you practice according to the tips and actions on the secret script, you will definitely feel uncomfortable. At this point, the role of the master is reflected. Some people can be called famous masters precisely because he can help cultivators adjust to the most suitable level for practicing secret scripts. Even Kikumoto had to practice repeatedly to understand this truth. He didn't expect the young man in front of him to understand this truth just by using the Weitua demon sword once. People are more infuriating than others. Jiumozhi's face once turned incredibly red at a speed visible to the naked eye. This time, he lost again. He memorized swordsmanship moves and sweated profusely, while Su Li was relaxed and ordinary. Although his swordsmanship was smoother, it was built on the foundation of his over 40 years of martial arts practice, and Su Li only learned the trick of not being able to trust books after watching him practice swordsmanship once. Why do you give birth to Su? Jiumozhi looked up to the sky and sighed. Su Li sighed and couldn't figure it out for a moment when he saw Jiumozhi. However, Su Li didn't disturb him and continued to practice Taizu Long Fist. Tomorrow's competition will be better than Taizu's Long Fist. Su Li needs to master it proficiently. Jiumozhi said that the prerequisite for giving him another Shaolin 70.2 unique skills is that Su Li must be extremely talented and help him win tomorrow's competition. Su Li naturally had to work hard for the second Shaolin 70.2 unique skills. After sighing and sighing, Jiumozhi turned his head to look at Su Li, who was constantly reviewing Taizu's Long Fist, and his body immediately shook. Yeah, when he first practiced martial arts, wasn't he just as passionate as this Su Shizhu? As he said before, if you want to achieve something, you need to have the courage to face setbacks directly. Those of us who practice martial arts should have the spirit of perseverance and never give up. It's just an instant learning of Taizu Long Fist, it's nothing. As for the Weichuofu demon sword, perhaps it was Su Li Nai who was a skilled swordsman who quickly learned it. Perhaps he would learn other martial arts much slower. Well, maybe it's really like this. If that's the case, at most Su Li won one game, and he still has hope. Jiumozhi also wanted to compete with Su Li, such as throwing Su Li another palm technique secret book, a fist technique secret book, and a knife technique secret book to try one by one, but he also knew what was most important. He traveled thousands of miles from Tubo to the Quanzhen Sect in order to achieve innate skills. Now that this divine skill is right in front of him, he naturally cannot miss it. Helping Su Li master the Taizu Long Fist is what he needs to do now. Thinking through this, Jiumozhi walked forward and personally helped Su Li unravel the moves, and taught Su Li by example where the flaws of each move of Taizu Long Fist lie. Su Li's memory is already excellent. Jiumozhi said that the last time, Su Li was able to remember, greatly accelerating the process of their martial arts practice. So, time quickly arrived at night. On the flat ground at the edge of the cliff, Su Li stood aside, pondering the gains he had just made from fighting with Jiumozhi. Jiumozhi, on the other hand, had a complex expression on his face, with 3 parts surprised, 3 parts excited, 3 parts joyful, and 1 part faint disappointed. He sat cross-legged on the edge of the cliff, looking at Su Li. Just now, he and Su Li used Taizu Long Fist to fight each other. Originally, according to Kikumoto's plan, even if he didn't use his internal power, his strength and speed would be slightly stronger than Su Li, and he could use these advantages to surpass Su Li. As soon as the fight broke out, Jiumozhi became somewhat skeptical of life. Although his moves were fast, Su Li was also not slow. In just one afternoon, Su Li was well versed in Taizu Long Fist, and the transitions between various moves were also very natural. Jiumozhi was naturally very unhappy. Originally, he had planned to educate Su Li well and let him know his strength, so he added some tricks. Although it is different from the orthodox Taizu Changquan, in the end, it still revolves around the changes that have occurred in the foundation of Taizu Changquan. However, even so, Su Li was just flustered for a while. After he adapted, he could use the moves from Taizu Long Fist to deal with it calmly. Jiumozhi couldn't hold back any longer, his speed and strength increased significantly again, and it was only then that he hit Su Li's chest. Jiumozhi won this competition, and he knew that he would also win tomorrow's competition. After all, even if that young man was powerful, he would not be stronger than Su Li now. This is the answer he drew from the lesson of red fruit. Su Li's talent can indeed be said to be the only one he has ever seen in his life. Tomorrow, stabilize. Although Jiumozhi felt sour in his heart, he was also a little excited to think that he would receive the innate skill tomorrow. He walked behind Su Li and began to use his internal energy to warm and nourish the meridians, unblock them, hoping to alleviate Su Li's fatigue and allow him to exert all his strength tomorrow. Su Li is enjoying the service of Technician Jiumozhi from Technician 77, and his eyelids have started to fight. He was already exhausted. He tried diving in the morning and almost lost his life in the pool. Then, he learned martial arts with Kikumoto for a whole day. Speaking of diving, Su Li suddenly had a strange idea in her heart. She opened her sleepy eyes and glanced at Jiumozhi. Her eyes became firm for a moment, and then fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Su Li was awakened by Jiumozhi's shaking. At this moment, just as the sun had risen, Jiumozhi woke up Su Li and called it a review. Su Li ate some mantu that Jiumozhi asked from the Quanzhen school's kitchen, and then practiced Taizu long fist for 2 hours. It was only half an hour before the martial arts contest. Jiumozhi gave Su Li a rest. The benefactor's talent is really good, and his appearance can be considered charming. Why can't he think of becoming a monk? Jiumozhi chatted and asked, he really doesn't understand. Su Li doesn't seem like the 6 roots are pure. How could he join the Quanzhen Sect? You should know that disciples of Quanzhen Taoism are not allowed to marry. In the eyes of Jiumozhi, this is simply blind to Su Li's appearance. Well, that's also one of the reasons why Jiumozhi admires Su Li very much. Back then, when he was young, he was also a handsome young man. Su Li's heart trembled as she arrived. Su Li was thinking last night that he knew the traces of many divine skills in his mind, but some of them he couldn't obtain. Since that's the case, could he cooperate with Jiumozhi? In Su Li's view, Jiumozhi is just a martial arts enthusiast who is addicted to practicing. Judging from his exchange of innate skills with Quanzhen Sect using Shaolin's 70.2 unique skills, Jiumozhi does not reject the sharing of martial arts skills. Coincidentally, Su Li is also such a person. He also believes that it should be people who are strong, not martial arts. The same martial arts are used by different people, and their power is also different. For example, in the original work, Xiao Feng punched a child with Taizu long fist to obtain the 9 yin fragments from the ancient tomb. Su Li needs to master a method of closing his breath. He can definitely learn this method from Kikumoto. And use the 9 yin fragments from the ancient tomb to exchange with Jiumozhi for more martial arts. After obtaining the 9 yin fragments, we set off for the Wuliang mountain in Dali and exchanged our northern underworld divine arts and Lingbo micro steps with Jiumozhi for other martial arts. This cycle repeats itself. In addition to the martial arts that can be exchanged for Jiumozhi, you can also bring Jiumozhi with you. Although Su Li's talent is good, he has not yet developed his internal power. If he were a mountain bandit holding a sword, Su Li would be a formidable opponent. The journey from Quanzhen Sect to Dali Wuliang Mountain is far away, and Su Li feels that there is no better bodyguard than Jiumozhi. Also, after the competition is over, let's ask how Kikumoto's chess skills are thinking of this. Su Li's gaze towards Jiumozhi had become increasingly passionate. National teacher, this matter is a long story. Su Li said softly. Time is still long, I am willing to hear its details. Who said that family members don't gossip? Do national teachers know the 9 yin manual? Su Li asked softly. Upon hearing this, Jiumozhi stood up with a scrape and widened his eyes, staring at Su Li with a burning gaze as if he wanted to melt her away. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Pinched to the death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Pinched to the death, almsgiver. Almsgiver. Why did you suddenly mention the 9 yin manual? Jiumozhi quickly asked, staring closely at Su Li's mouth, hoping to say the answer he was looking forward to from Su Li's mouth. Alas! The Guoshe passed on our unique Shaolin learning, which is just the 9 manual. Why not tell the Guoshe? Su Li's self-talk almost lifted Jiumozhi's heart to his throat. To be honest with the national teacher, I came to Zhongnan mountain just for the 9 manual. Su Li spoke up, and Jiumozhi's face turned incredibly red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then he quickly grabbed Su Li's hands, and Su Li could clearly feel that Jiumozhi's hands were trembling faintly. Benefactor, do you know the whereabouts of the 9 manual? Kikumoto widened his eyes, trembled his lips, and asked. Su Li nodded gently, and Jiumozhi's hands trembled more and more. To be honest, I do know the whereabouts of the 9 manual, and it's just a simple task for us to get it. Su Li's words made Jiumozhi's body start to get excited, and Jiumozhi didn't know what to say for a moment. Let Su Li tell him the whereabouts of the 9 manual directly. He thinks so. If Su Li told him, it would be easy to say anything. He even prepared that if Su Li didn't tell him, he would use his compassion Buddha Dharma to ask Su Li to tell him the whereabouts of the 9 manual. Although shameless, he would later apologize to Su Li. I believe that for the sake of Buddha's face, Su Li should forgive him. Right. But as the competition is approaching, it is clearly not the best time to ask Su Li. Su Li saw a lively expression on Jiumozhi's face, and the corners of his mouth lifted. Then his face suddenly changed, with a sigh-like expression. Why do you sigh and sigh, benefactor? Jiumozhi quickly inquired. I just sighed that even the national teachers were willing to exchange Shaolin's 70.2 unique skills for innate skills, but the people of Quanzhen Sect still refused. It's really a waste of money. How can one practice martial arts behind closed doors? In my opinion, it would be great if martial arts practitioners in the world could share their cultivation secrets. At that time, the success of martial arts practice will depend entirely on one's talent and diligence. That would be great. Zurich looked yearning, and Jiumozhi widened his eyes, looking at him with a look of finding a confidant. Your words, benefactor, come to light. Su Li's words can be considered as touching on his heart. Martial arts are originally meant for people to cultivate. Everyone can share their martial arts secrets and innovate to develop even more powerful martial arts. How great! And he's not just an empty-handed white wolf. Swap 70.2 Shaolin unique skills for one innate skill, Quanzhen Sect will make a lot of money, okay. Sigh. A group of ox noses, at such an old age, have all lived up to dogs, not as transparent as a young man's imagination. Jiumozhi's eyes flashed and looked at Su Li. He thought to himself, this benefactor has the same idea as me. Why don't I exchange my unique martial arts for the 9 manual? Su Li saw that Jiumozhi began to hesitate and tangle again. Su Li knew that Jiumozhi had moved to exchange martial arts for the 9 manual. But Jiumozhi thought he was an eminent monk. Now even if he came to ask for the congenital skills, he would use Murongbo's name. It seems that he is insatiable to ask him to ask for the 9 manual directly. What Su Li needs to do is very simple, give Jiumozhi a step down. National teacher, I have a saying, I don't know if I should say it or not. Su Li said. Upon hearing this, Jiumozhi hurriedly said, almsgiver, why don't you speak directly? Although I have learned martial arts for the first time, I also know the principle of integrating the strengths of 100 schools, so I'm brave enough to use my 9 manual that I haven't got, and exchange some martial arts from the national teacher to study and understand, and maybe I can create a new martial arts in the future. Su Li looked at Jiumozhi with a smile on her face and spoke. Jiumozhi's expression was extremely amusing, with a suppressed smile at the corner of his mouth that he could hardly hold back. He looked at Su Li now as if he were looking at a Buddha or Bodhisattva. Is it difficult for him to do good all his life, and now he finally has a blessing? Jiumozhi originally intended to agree directly, but he thought to himself, if I agree too hastily, it doesn't look too good either. Anyway, it's this benefactor who spoke first, why not decline a bit and then push the boat with the flow? Jiumozhi is still thinking about how to preserve his image as a monk in front of Su Li. Almsgiver's talent is unparalleled. In the contest, the benefactor is sure. I promised to give him a Shaolin unique skill when he won the contest. Now I see the heart fist of the benefactor. Since that's the case, I will give him 2 unique skills. It's just a matter of using the 9-in manual to exchange. Don't mention it again. Gentlemen, don't take advantage of others. After Jiumozhi finished speaking, he secretly glanced at Su Li, as if saying, "Please advise me, please advise me." Su Li was also ridiculed by Jiumozhi's remarks. They are all foxes that have been around for thousands of years. How about playing and chatting with him here? The national teacher is indeed noble and upright, I admire him. Su Li arched his hand and said, while Jiumozhi beside him was dumbfounded. Almsgiver, you should advise me. I promise to agree directly. Seeing that Su Li had stopped talking for a long time, Hatoyama finally couldn't bear it. Benefactor, I'm not afraid of your jokes. I just remembered that my friend once mentioned the 9-in manual. If I can also bring the 9-in manual to my friend's grave and cremate it, I think my friend will be happy in the Western paradise. That. So I dare to use my martial arts to exchange for the 9-in manual. Jiumozhi's cautious expression almost smiled at Su Li, but Su Li still suppressed the smile from the corner of his mouth and quickly said, National teacher is really affectionate. I admire him. Hearing Su Li's words of deep affection, Jiumozhi blushed with shame. But thinking of the 9-in manual, Jiumozhi accepted Su Li's sincere evaluation. As the national teacher said, there is nothing to be avoided. After the test, I will take the national teacher to get the 9-in manual. Hatoyama didn't say how many 70.2 unique skills he used to exchange for the 9-in manual in Su Li's mouth. After all, it's just a secret in Su Li's mouth. Whether it's true or not is unknown. However, if Su Li's hen takes him to find the 9-in manual, he will never spare his unique skills. Well, he swore with his beloved Buddha. When Jiumozhi wanted to ask Su Li how he knew the whereabouts of the 9-in manual and where the 9-in manual was, 2 Taoists came to the front. Guosher, Shizu asked us to invite you to the martial arts arena, and the time for the martial arts contest is coming. Upon hearing this, Jiumozhi looked up at the sun and said, wow, he and Su Li have been chatting for so long. Jiumozhi didn't hesitate either. He directly pressed Su Li's shoulder and jumped up. When the 2 Taoist priests looked up, Su Li and Jiumozhi's figure were long gone. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Panic. Non-existent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Panic. Non-existent on the martial arts field of Quanzhen Sect, Mayu, Cho Chuji, and other old gods stood in front of the mountain gate, looking leisurely and contented. Zhou Yu's mastery of Taizu Long Fist exceeded their imagination, and the entire set of Taizu Long Fist was mastered by Zhou Yu. They have been helping Zhou Yu crack tricks for a whole day, and now the day has passed with remarkable results. If nothing unexpected happens, they will definitely achieve the final victory today. You have been waiting for a long time, little monk, it's too late. A voice drifted from a distance, and in the next moment, 2 figures descended from the sky, namely Jiumozhi and Su Li. Dear Taoist priests. Jiumozhi originally wanted to ask these people if they were ready. If they were ready, let's start as soon as possible. Who would have thought that Cho Chuji wouldn't give him a chance to finish speaking? National teacher. The tour is ready, let's start as soon as possible. Jiumozhi was shocked for a moment, and an inexplicable fire rose in his heart. Who is he? Tibetan national teacher. The top expert of Tubo Kingdom. How dare Cho Chuji speak to him like this? Hurry up and start, right? Okay. Jiumozhi turned his head, turned his back to Jiumozhi, faced Su Li directly, and nodded slightly at Su Li. Master Su, please. Whip them hard. Su Li nodded lightly, crossed over Jiumozhi, and walked up to the martial arts stage. There was a young man standing in the center with a proud appearance, his hands behind his back, and he was very ungrateful. Let's start. Hurry up and finish it, I still have to apprentice. The young man farted and said. Su Li was stunned for a moment. Are all these little guys so brave these days? Su Li nodded. He and Jiumozhi, who don't use internal power, can both fight back and forth. If they can't win a little fart, Su Li might as well just find a piece of tofu to kill them. Come on. Su Li said softly, reaching out his hand and gesturing in the starting posture of Taizu long fist. Upon seeing this, Zhou Yu's eyes gradually became sharper. He let out a loud roar, full of anger, and charged towards Su Li. Kill. Then. Ah! Bang! A cloud of dust was stirred up, and on the high platform, Jiumozhi, Ma Yu, and others almost startled their chins, then stumbled back and fell to the ground. It was Zhou Yu. They can hardly believe it. Zhou Yu was also a bit confused, but he quickly got up from the ground and charged towards Su Li with another loud roar. The voice is different this time. Bang! Bang! This is the sound of two people touching their arms. Then. Ah! Bang! The martial arts performance platform has become cleaner, and the landing of the tour has stirred up another layer of dust. All right. On the nearby boulder, Jiumozhi spoke with a proud expression on his face. Then he turned to Jiumozhi, Ma Yu, and others, and said with a beaming expression, "You Taoist priests, the outcome has already been decided." Jiumozhi's face turned red with anger, and Ma Yu's expression was also solemn. Wang Qi frowned and walked up to him. "Master, have you colluded with this person beforehand?" Jiumozhi listened to Wang Qi's words and was momentarily stunned. Then, he suddenly patted the withered tree beside him, causing it to break off as a whole. Ami his mother Buddha, these neo-nose Taoists want to pay back. Wang Daochang, what does this mean? Jiumozhi said word by word, do you really think that Jiumozhi has a good temper? If they don't give up and surrender their innate skills today, then he will let these ox noses know that besides Buddha, there are also angry eyes Vajra in Buddhism. Humph. What do you mean? The national teacher deliberately proposed a competition and then chose this person. Such a design is really a loss of national teacher identity. Wang Chu shouted loudly. As the words fell, the surrounding crowd began to discuss. It's really true. Then Jiumozhi came up and said he wanted to test his disciples' abilities. It must have been a collusion. In just one day, how could it be possible to train Taizu Changquan like this? It must be that guy who has been practicing Taizu Changquan for several years. The sound of discussion echoed in harmony, one after another, and upon hearing it, the veins on Jiumozhi's forehead erupted. Compete with Taizu Changquan, but you proposed it first. Jiumozhi silently recited Amitabha Buddha several times in his heart, and then spoke up to explain. Don't be angry, don't be angry. When you get angry, there's no one to replace you. The most popular martial arts in the Song dynasty was Taizu Changquan, and it was normal for the national teacher to have some experience. The national teacher had this young person learn Taizu Changquan, Yu family spear, Yang family spear, and other widely circulated martial arts for several years. If we agreed to the competition, we could only choose from these martial arts, and this happened to fulfill the national teacher's wish. Jiumozhi said coldly, shaking the dust in his hand with a smart posture like mine. Jiumozhi took a deep breath again. If I'm not angry or not, who would be satisfied if I were to die of anger? According to what you all mean, is it true that the benefactor Su was sent by a young monk and allowed to practice Taizu long fist several years in advance? Jiumozhi asked. I've been practicing for at least 10 years. Jiumozhi said decisively. The reason why you all think this is because you believe that Su Shizhu could not have practiced Taizu Changquan to such an extent in just one day. Jiumozhi asked in response. Qiu Chuji and others nodded without hesitation. They really didn't believe there were such people in the world. If those great masters who established schools of thought say they can achieve this level, they believe that Su Li is a young person. They really don't believe it. If the little monk can prove that Su Shizhu practiced Taizu long fist to such an extent within one day, will you all give up? Jiumozhi asked. Qiu Chuji and others fell silent this time, and Jiumozhi's serious expression was a bit frightening, which made them doubt their own ideas. How can a national teacher prove it? They didn't rush to agree, but asked Jiumozhi how to prove that Su Li learned Taizu long fist within a day. Jiumozhi's mouth curved as he said, "It's very simple. You can teach Master Su one martial arts skill, no need to teach mental techniques, just practice martial arts moves. No matter what move you teach him, Master Su can learn it by looking at it once. In this way, it must prove that Lord Su did indeed learn Taizu long fist within a day." In Jiumozhi's view, although Su Li's talent was slightly weaker than him, it was still easy to achieve what he had just said. He doesn't believe that Qiu Chuji and others will pass Su Li more complex martial arts moves than Shaolin's 72 unique skills. Su Li can even watch the Way to a Demon Sword once and use it very well, not to mention other martial arts skills. Jiumozhi's mood has calmed down a lot now, just one word, steady. Qiu Chuji and others fell silent for an instant, but they were frightened by Jiumozhi's resolute expression and dared not speak for a moment. However, for Kamashi, whether to agree or not is not up to Qiu Chuji and others to choose. Ladies and gentlemen, this method, little monk, is the best proof of Master Su's talent. You can teach him a martial arts skill that is more complex than Taizu long fist. If he can replicate the moves by looking at it once, then he can also do Taizu long fist. If Lord Su did it, it would naturally be considered a victory for me. If Lord Su did not do it, I would immediately admit defeat without hesitation. But if you Taoist priests dare not, then don't slander me for colluding with Master Su. Otherwise, if this matter spreads to the world of martial arts, it will be shameless on the face. It must be your Quanzhen Sect. After Jiumozhi finished speaking, seeing Qiu Chuji and others still stuttering, he immediately shouted loudly, "Is it true that Quanzhen teachings cannot afford to lose?" "Okay. According to your words." Qiu Chuji shouted loudly, "He doesn't believe there is such a talented person in the world. A young person without internal strength can learn it by looking at it once. Do you consider yourself the pure young patriarch or the Dharma? Let's see Qiu Chuji expose this person's true face." "Sword." Qiu Chuji shouted softly. Su Li is holding the matching sword taught by Quanzhen, so he will use a sword technique to test Su Li's water. Too ordinary is not enough, it needs some difficulty. Too powerful is not enough, even if the martial arts moves are spread, he still feels a bit distressed. End of this chapter.